All right, let's go ahead and get started. It's about to be noon o'clock here in the Central Time Zone. I'd like to welcome everybody to today's webinar. I appreciate you guys tuning in today and taking the time out of your day to watch our webinar on advanced commercial grading using the CTC Auto Grader. This is a tool I've, since starting here at ATG, become very familiar with, and it's definitely a tool that while I was in the industry, I really wish I would have had access to. We would like for you guys to go ahead and subscribe to our socials if you don't already. We are easy to find on LinkedIn. Just go ahead and look up ATG USA for invites and upcoming webinars like this one. And if you missed the webinar and just want to catch up on some of our latest videos, you can also find us on YouTube at the link shown here. So my name is Felix Cortez. I'm a civil infrastructure technical specialist here at ATG. I'm also an Autodesk certified instructor. We're a platinum partner with Autodesk and Bluebeam. At ATG, our goal is to be your one-stop shop for everything from software licensing, training, and support. We also have hardware solutions in the form of our BIMbox line of computers. We love doing these types of webinars for our clients. Creating content definitely helps our customers become more efficient and proficient in the software that they use every day. If you have any questions, like looks like somebody already has, if you could go ahead and click the Q&A button at the bottom or top of your screen and go ahead and fill those out. I will try to answer them during the webinar. And if I don't get to them, I will definitely reach out to you afterwards. So today's agenda, what we're going to be looking at are what are some out-of-the-box solutions that Autodesk provides through Civil 3D. One of them, obviously, when we're going through our commercial grading, a lot of times we will start off with either our top of curb or a flow line of our curb. And some of the stuff that we get caught up on are not having dynamic abilities to have our top of curve calculated for us. That way, as we change our design, which is obviously not perfect on the first shot, that our top of curve, back of curve, maybe sidewalk, all of those are connected to where we're making big swooping changes across our site. So what I'm going to look at is one of the first adaptations to grading, which is using the feature line stepped offset. It's not dynamic by any stretch. One of the things that it oftentimes does create is a little bit more of a mess. You could get confused on what you have updated, what you haven't updated. A lot of times it's going to involve a lot of erasing feature lines and starting over so that you can figure out where you were. Another tool we'll look at is the grading tool in Civil 3D. Now, this is a form of dynamic grading. The one area that I don't like about using the grading tools is a lot of times we will end up with um, the little diamonds will, if you don't delete the grading a certain way, Civil 3D doesn't like it and it will corrupt your drawing. And then lastly, one of the first webinars I did here at ATG was using corridors to do our commercial grading. It's very efficient, but not very new user friendly. So maybe as somebody who's less experienced in Civil 3D might get into this drawing and not realize what's going on in the inner workings, and it could create some confusion. And so that's where when I found this CTC Auto Grader tool, it's a different animal all in itself. So it does utilize the feature line grading, but it utilizes it in a way where it's semi-dynamic, meaning I can go ahead and create children feature lines off of my main feature line. And as I make changes to my main feature line, the changes will reflect to my other feature lines, and I won't have to worry about um, them getting confused or lost in the mix. Very streamlined, very lightweight solution. So let's go ahead and jump into Civil 3D and let's take a look at our uh, different types of grading. So what I have here is just a small commercial site, and I just have a regular feature line here, has elevations on it. And one thing I do like to do in these types of instances where I'm going to be sheet flowing maybe through this island and this island is I'll actually go ahead and design these two feature lines, create my surface, and then I'll go ahead and let Civil 3D calculate all these elevations for me and maybe just make some minor changes to it. Let's go ahead and show what a stepped offset out of the box solution looks like. So again, here's my flow line elevation, and I'm going to go ahead and go up to my home tab, go to feature line, and I'm just going to create a regular stepped offset. So here, if my face of curve is, let's say, 2 inches back, go ahead and set this to 2 inches back and select my feature line. And now I can go ahead and give it an elevational difference. So let's say we're doing a 6-inch curve. I'll go up 0.5. There's my back of curve. And so here, like I was saying at the beginning, so I have two feature lines here. Now they're not related to each other in any way, shape, or form. So if I come in and I start making changes to this feature line, I would not expect for the feature line I just created to make those same adjustments. And that's where we can definitely run into some problems. So let me go ahead and erase that. And so the second solution that I was kind of talking about was using a grading tool. So I'm going to go ahead and go up to my home tab again, go here to my grading tab, my grading creation tool, and I'm going to go ahead and grade to a relative elevation. And I'm going to go ahead and select my grading, select my feature line. For some reason, not wanting to grab it. And here's exact reason why we don't like to use this tool. So we'll go ahead and skip that tool because it just doesn't even want to work on this feature line. The other workflow that I was talking about is a corridor. So in 2018 or 2019, there was a solution that I kind of came up with where we can now add feature lines as baselines in a corridor. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a really quick assembly. And we're just going to call this curve. And we'll just put it here off to the side. And I'm going to go ahead and open my tool palette. And we'll go to our curves. And actually, let's go ahead and use urban curb and gutter. And if I go to my properties, um, we can see that there's just a ton of dimensional settings that we have to do. And this is where it can get confusing for a regular user who maybe just doesn't know how these corridors work or these assemblies work. But I'm going to go ahead and set this guy up so I can show you how it works. So we're going to go ahead and set it up to our left side, just based on our stationing. I'm going to go ahead and hover over. So these dimensions, by the way, are not very helpful, right? A, B, C, D, A, E, and F, and G don't really tell me what the dimension is really going to be for. So let's go ahead and hover over so we can at least get our help to tell us how how these dimensions apply to each other. So this is the depth of the gutter at the flange point. Um, so we're going to go ahead and change this to 0.01 inches. The width, 0.01 inches. And so this is going to be 0.01 inches as well. The height of the curb is 6 inches. Width of the gutter flow line to the back of curb. So let's go ahead and make this 9 inches. Width of the top of curb, we could go ahead and leave it at 6 inches. And the back curb, we can go ahead and leave there. So let's go ahead and add this, and it looks kind of wonky here because of the dimensions that we're giving it. But for this purpose, I'm going to go ahead and close my tool palette. Let's go ahead and build this corridor. We're going to do our baseline from a feature line. Let's go ahead and select our feature line, select our assembly. And just so we can see it, let's change our frequency to 5 and 1. Go ahead and rebuild our corridor. And there we have it, right? So our feature line is under here. We're building our curb. And this solution can definitely work. Again, coming back to the fact that you have to be a more advanced user to be able to use this and pass it off to less experienced users, or in the case of you maybe being out of the office on vacation and somebody else has to jump into this drawing and make changes to it, it can be a little bit complicated. Let's go ahead and delete this corridor. Now let's get into the reason we're all here, right? I'll go ahead and open up my Sim Project Suite. I'm gonna go ahead and open up my Auto Grader tool. So here we're starting off with a clean slate. And if you guys have not used Auto Grader before, there are some recent updates to it that have made it way more efficient. So right now there are some surfaces in here. But if I start putting in some of my grading families and I want to add them to a new surface, I can actually go ahead and create a surface right from this dialog box. And another thing I can do is also create surface boundaries from this dialog box. So these are two really important tools that we typically need, where we don't want to have to go through and create our boundaries all the time, where this will actually take the extent of our grading and go ahead and wrap it in a boundary for us. So first thing I'm going to do I'm going to go ahead and create a new grading family. So I'm going to hit the big green plus button. The type of grading we're going to do is parallel. And let's go ahead and give this grading family a name. Let's go ahead and call this one curve. And there's two ways I can select my parent feature line. So what I want to grade off of. I can either do it by selecting the drawing, or I can come in here and I can select any one of my filters that I wish. So by selecting the green pick box, I can choose a layer. I can choose it by layer description, by a name, by a style, even by a site. So in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and do it by selection. So I'm going to go ahead and select this feature line here. And another thing I can do is I can actually do either the full station range, in this case 565 feet, or if I wanted to maybe break this guy up, depending on my design, I can go ahead and do a certain range. In this case, I'm going to just go ahead and leave it at the full station range. And we can also change the formatting of the feature lines that it's going to create for us. So we can match the defaults, or we can even change the styles while we're in here of the additional feature lines. We can change the layers that they're on. So in this case, let's go ahead and do finish grade break lines. And if we wanted to, we can even change the site that they're on. We go ahead and hit OK. And now I'm going to go ahead and create my children feature lines. So you can see as soon as I hit the plus button, pretty quick preview shows up of what we're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and name the second feature line that I'm going to create, or first feature line off of our parent. I'll go ahead and name this TC for top of curve. So I can choose where I want to anchor it from. Since we only have a parent right now, that's the only option I have. And like the grading tool that didn't work, we can go ahead and either set a distance at a slope. We can do a distance to a relative elevation. Pretty much all the grading variations are here. In this case, we're going to go ahead and do a distance to a relative elevation. And we're going to put this on our left side. And so we're going to go ahead and set this back 0.16. And our elevational difference is going to be 0.5. So we're going to go from our parent back 2 inches, up 6 inches for our top of curve. I'm going to go ahead and hit the green plus button a second time. And here what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create our back of curve. Now, one of the things you can see right off the bat that it did is I can now anchor it to either my parent or my top of curve. In this case, we're going to go ahead and keep it to our top of curve. We are going to do a distance and a slope, and we're going to keep this on the left side. So if our curve is 6 inches wide from flow line to back of curve, we're going to go back 0.34. These two combined is our 0.5 from here to here. And it's our top of curve, so we're going to keep it flat. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And when we come back out to the main dialog box, you can see that I can also set this to a surface. So again, I'm doing new grading. These are all different surfaces that I want to use. So I'm going to just go ahead and create a surface straight from this dialog box. Select the button, and let's just call this overall grading. I put a description in here, but I'm not going to. And we're going to go ahead and set our style to 1 in 5 design. I don't need to change any of these other settings. And I'm going to tell it to go ahead and create my surface for me. So now what I could do in this drop down is I can select my overall grading. What this is going to do is it's going to take my parent feature line, my top of curve, and my back of curve, and it's going to go ahead and add those to my surface for me. So again, it's cutting down the steps of things that I'm going to have to do with the out of the box solution. I would have had to create these offsets, grab all three, add them to a surface. And again, we're talking about being efficient. So the most efficient way of doing things is usually letting our computing power do the work for us. So what I'm going to do is move this off to the side a little bit, and we're going to hit run. And you can see if I go ahead and close this, go ahead and look, did create those additional feature lines for us, but they might be frozen. So I'm going to open up my layer. And I'm going to look for our frozen layer. And we put it on this finish ground break lines layer. And so there's our feature lines that it created for us. So now we have 3 total feature lines. And now we want to go ahead and see how this differs from the out-of-box solution. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and come in here and I'm going to start making changes to this. So let's say we wanted a low point right in here because we want to drain out this way. Right now, it does look like we're going that way. But let's go ahead and set an even grade from this corner all the way around to this corner. And we're going to go ahead and set that at a -3%. And so let's go ahead and use our set grade slope between points. And we're going to go ahead and select that point, accept the value, and let's go ahead and come to there. Zoom out so you could see. I'm going to go ahead and make this -3%. And let me go ahead and set the surface to rebuild automatic. So here we will see that my flow line elevations changed, but my top of curve and back of curve didn't. So in order to get those to update, I'm just going to go ahead and open my auto grader tool. And all I'm going to do is hit run. And so what that's going to do is it's going to go ahead and rerun those feature lines. And now they've adjusted. So I don't have to sit here and make changes with the out of the box solution of now selecting this feature line, doing the same thing I did to the first one, grabbing the next feature line and doing the same thing as the first one. AutoGrader is going to go ahead and make the changes from my parent and reflect them through to the children feature lines that it's creating. Let's go ahead and do this outside feature line. So go ahead and see how it's the design is coming. So we're coming along ultimately to a low point right in here. And our stationing is going to start up here. So the stationing is coming around this way. That's important to know before we go in to AutoGrader. Go open up my AutoGrader again. And so since this is coming this way, I know that my curb can be on my left side, just like we already have. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit the pencil, and I'm gonna go ahead and add this selection. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit select from drawing. I'm gonna go ahead and select this feature line as well. So now we have the two feature lines. So I'm gonna go ahead and save and close this. Go ahead and hit run. I hit close. So now what AutoGrader has done for us, it's also created these additional feature lines for us. And like I did previously, it added all those feature lines to my surface for me. So I got a pretty quick grading plan right off the bat. And if we were to look at this in 3D, we would also be able to see how all of this relates. We would be able to see our top of curve, our back of curve. So I'm going to go ahead and just show that through Object Viewer. Go ahead and maximize this. There you go. So we could see it's a little jagged. I can come in and even make changes to those, our mid-ordinate point. Go ahead and go to our settings here. And we're going to do our mid-ordinance distance. I like to go ahead and use 0.1. So what we'll see is when we go back in, it's going to go ahead and clean all this up for me. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to rerun this. Close. Now let's go ahead and look at our object viewer. There we go. Now we have those clean radiuses. One of the other things I can do is as I'm making these grading families, I open up AutoGrader again, is I can also go ahead and save this curve out. And then in another project that where I want to use the same exact settings, I can also load them right back in. So kind of the way that Civil 3D uses assemblies, we're in essence creating our own assemblies, but instead of them being all one chunk, we're creating them in smaller bite-sized pieces. And so when it comes to flexibility, again, for other users who maybe aren't experienced as some of us, let's say there's a one-off that somebody wants to do. So let's say that they want to set this finished floor with a feature line, and they want to see where we're at elevation wise. So what they could do still, because CTC AutoGrader is not creating anything that isn't organic to Civil 3D. It's actually creating just regular Civil 3D objects. It's just doing all those steps for us that we would normally do on our own. So if I still wanted to do a stepped offset of this feature line, I could go to Home, go to my feature line settings, do a stepped offset, and let's go ahead and go from parent intersection here, perpendicular, and let's go ahead and select our feature line, come out, and let's say we want to do a grade of 2%. So now we can go ahead and come along our feature line and see we're at 811.28, dropping. This corner we're at 808.79. So we could realistically maybe make this an 811 finished floor. And one of the things I like to do, even though we're using the CTC tools, is I could go ahead and now just delete that feature line I just created. I'm going to go ahead and take, this is just a regular polyline, and I like to use polylines for my finished floor. So I'm going to go ahead and set this elevation at 811. And I'm going to go to my overall grading, my definition, and I'm going to go ahead and add a break line. And I'm going to call this finish floor. That way, if I did have to come back and look for it in my surface properties, I could find it. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. I'm going to go ahead and add this guy. And there we go. We're starting to see our site plan really come together. We go to our object viewer. So now let's go ahead and do these islands. These islands are, we might want to do sawtooth curve or something through them. But nonetheless, it would still be uh, elevation wise, we already have a surface here. So we don't have to recreate the wheel when it comes to the design of these. Civil 3D is providing us with a surface to be able to extract the elevations from. And then what we would want to do in our typical workflow is go ahead and add our top of curve and back of curve, which we already have a tool to do. Let me go ahead and go to my feature line tool because these are just polylines right now. For our home tab feature line, or let's go ahead and create a feature line from an object. Go ahead and select both of these objects and we'll leave the site where it's at. We do want to name these for future use, just a good habit to have. We'll leave our style as basic and we do want to assign elevations and we also want to erase the existing entity. Go ahead and hit OK. And here, these are some newer options that we have from Civil 3D. I'm going to go ahead, select our overall grading surface. And one of the things that we can do is we can also insert intermediate point, grade break points. I typically don't do that. Um, I really do like keeping whatever PIs I have on my feature line. And if I need more, I'll go ahead and add them myself. What this tool will do is with all the triangulation going on behind the scenes to create these pins, anywhere that one of those tin lines crosses our polyline, it's going to go ahead and put a grade break point in there. A lot of times on bigger projects, this could slow down your production because the amount of PIs that you'll have to change will be a lot. So I usually leave this off. Now, one of the things that really helps, since this is going to be a feature line from a surface, is we could also make the elevations relative to the surface. So what does that mean? It means that if I make changes to my grading on either one of these feature lines out here, which are building the surface, and I go ahead and want this feature line to update itself based on those elevational changes, it'll do that for me. Now, one word of caution with this is once we run AutoGrader, that feature line will be a part of the surface. So we will have to either redo this step or make sure that our feature line is not being added to the surface. So I'll go ahead and leave this off for now. Go ahead and hit OK. Now, if we go ahead and look at our feature lines, they have grades and elevations to them. And they are all coming from our finished ground overall surface. So now with these guys selected, I am going to go ahead and go to my elevation editor. Again, we need to see which direction we are going in. So in this case, here's our 0, 0, this corner. When I click the next station, we're heading in this direction, which means our left side curve will also work for this feature line. So now let's go ahead and close our panorama. Let's select this feature line and see where it starts. I'll go ahead and zoom out so we can see the green triangle. So here's our 0, 0. Let's go ahead and see. So this one is actually going in the opposite direction. So we're here at 0, 0. We're at 14 here at this. So we are heading in this direction, which means our curve would want to be on the right side. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is actually just tell Civil 3D to reverse the direction of this one. Now I could go ahead and just build a new grading family, but just to keep it simple, I'll just go ahead and reverse the direction. It's that simple as just selecting a button. So now that I know that both of these feature lines are heading in the right direction station-wise, I'm gonna go ahead and go back to my Sim project suite with my auto grader. And I'm gonna go ahead and hit the pencil again. I'm gonna go ahead and this time, I'm gonna do it by filter. I'm gonna go ahead and hit my selection box on layer 0, which is probably a bad idea, but here we have 4 feature lines. So now it's selecting all 4 feature lines with. Now, if I want to create additional feature lines in the future using the same layer, and I come into AutoGrader, it will go ahead and automatically find those where I could just hit my run button and they would update. So with all those selected, I'm going to go ahead and hit run. And you can see that it just created feature lines for me. We have our surface. So let's go ahead and look at our object viewer. For some reason, it did go ahead and get rid of our jump. So let's go ahead and go back to AutoGrader. Let's see what it selected. We go ahead and selection by drawing. Go ahead and grab our flow lines. Last one there. Then save and close, and let's run this again. And let's rebuild. So here we're able to go ahead and create all those feature lines here in a pretty quick manner. In this scenario, even if we have a pond, we can go ahead and have it grade our ponds out. And again, these are really lightweight solutions where anybody can come in and make changes. If you want to create additional grading off of these, you can do so. The CTC tool is not creating anything that is directly proprietary to the CTC tool. Go ahead and see what some of these questions are real quick. Um, Antolin, we did go over some grading techniques that were not related to our CTC suite at the very beginning. I hope that answered your question. Does anybody else have any other questions that they'd like to ask? before we finish up? All right, guys. Well, again, if you are watching this webinar and you have any questions about anything I went over today, feel free to reach out to me at fcortez@atgusa.com. And you can also look me up on LinkedIn. I have a profile there. Again, thank you guys for your time today. And I hope that this was helpful to you. And we look forward to creating more content like this for you guys. Hope you have a good rest of your day.